Welcome to the Phoenix Prosperity Podcast, where wealth meets legacy. Join your host, Tim Fergestad, as we explore the journeys of Phoenix's finest to success and beyond.
Hello, this is Tim Fergestad. Thank you for joining us. I'm very pleased to have Tara Mettler with me here today. Tara's a financial architect and the founder of Position Yourself Wealth Strategies, a financial coaching company that takes a bold educational approach to wealth building. Welcome to the show, Tara.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's dive right into that. Can you tell us a little bit more about what Position Yourself Wealth Strategies is, and then we'll back up and talk about how you got into that space.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we are is a financial coaching and abundance program, essentially, to help people build what I call their personal economy and get their foundations and strategies and things in place in order to continue to hit the types of goals that they're looking for financially, creating abundance and spiraling upwards.
Okay, let's you've used abundance twice now, so we got to talk about that. Why is that important?
Well, I think that's important because that's something that really all of us are looking for. That's what we're striving for. And so when it comes to our goals, it's not about making less, it's about making more, and how we can do that in the right kind of framework and with the right types of results.
Right. I very much agree. I know a lot of people who get stuck in that mindset where they got to cut corners and skimp and save, and that's not something you're going to really be able to get behind and maintain.
Exactly.
A life of scarcity.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just it. It's like, I don't even like using words like budgeting or things like that, because that just continues to promote that scarcity mindset. Right.
So tell us how you became a financial architect.
Yeah, so I've always been a very out of the box type of person, and have always been very passionate about money. I came from a background of very little means. So unfortunately, what that did was it created a lot of bad relationships, if you will, with money.
Right.
But at least I was in the mind frame where I kind of knew that about myself. And so I thought, what can I do to improve that? So I was always a student about money, trying to learn different ways to make it, grow it, save, stay out of debt, get out of debt, what have you. And so when I got into the adulting world and, got my first job and all of those things, and now started to learn about more things on the money front, one of the things that really stood out to me was about retirement accounts. That was something that just like floored me, that a 401k was the option that was provided to me on how to save for my future. And even as a young adult, I was just
it's better than Social Security.
Yeah, so, right? But I was like, how does that make sense? So I'm supposed to put my money into a vehicle that you don't know what it's going to do, when it's going to do it, for how long. When it experiences losses, you don't know how much, how long it's going to take to get back to where you need it to be.
Right.
And I was like, how can you create a plan on something that you have zero variables on? And so that didn't make any sense to me. And I thought, this can't possibly be the gold standard. And so I kind of resisted it. And I thought, I'm not going to go down that path. I'm going to find something better. And so I worked and researched and tried to find different things, but I couldn't find anything. Well, eventually I worked in the banking industry, and I thought, oh, well, maybe here I'll find the answers. And all that did was raise more question marks as to
you saw more of where that industry is.
Exactly, right. And so it kind of disillusioned me for a while, because I just kind of thought, well, how is everybody doing it with something that I didn't see as like a very good model, right? Right. And so eventually time goes on and I can't find anything better, and time's ticking away. So it's like, I gotta make a move here. And so I decide, all right, I'm gonna do the 401k like everyone else is, but I'm frustrated when I get my statements and it's not doing what I want it to do. And so I'm always still in the back of my mind looking for a better solution. So fast forward
I can just commiserate with you on that, and just looking at retirement accounts and doing the math, and it's like almost everything in there over years is what I put in.
Exactly. And it's so sad because so many people don't realize that that's really how it performs, and that's how I saw for myself. And so, I thought, well, maybe there was a time when we had gotten like a little inheritance, and I thought, oh, well, now's the time to go to a financial professional and, get some really good insight, get some good training. And I was, again, so disillusioned because when I went to this financial professional, they basically told me, well, you don't have enough. We can't do anything with you. And I'm like, okay, well, I wasn't happy about that answer, but I thought, okay, well, use it as a time to teach me. And so I said, okay, well, that's fine then. What can I do instead so that I can make enough to come back to you? Mm-hmm. And they're like, just go put it in the bank. And I was like, okay, well, that's where it is now. And I know that's not the right place for it. So how is that the right answer? And so I was so frustrated again. I was like, every which way I turned, I wasn't finding a good solution to the future problems that I could see happening, right? And so fast forwarding into 2020, I end up losing my job due to the pandemic. The company that I worked for ended up laying almost everybody off. And so I had a little side hustle business that I thought, well, maybe I can start networking online, take it from side hustle to main hustle. And over the course of that time, I ended up meeting a wealth strategist, an alternative wealth strategist.
Okay.
And her 2-minute elevator pitch completely threw me off my game. I couldn't believe it. I was like, she talked about concepts that I had never heard of before. And I thought, how in all of the research and all of the exposure and everything that everybody I've talked to, how have I never heard of these things? And so I immediately called her up and I was like, I need to know what you're talking about. A, this is something I'm very passionate about. And B, we've just lost half of our household income. I need to know that I'm on the right path. And so she said, well, I'm doing a Facebook Live tomorrow night. Why don't you come on that and see what you think? And if you like it and you think it's going to be good, then we can talk. And so I did. And within the first 6 slides of her presentation, I literally threw my hands up and said to my husband, I'm like, this is it. I found what I was looking for. Okay. And so I immediately called her again. We talked the next day. We did a financial review and she introduced me to my first alternative asset. And as they say, the rest is history. It's like I was in love with this. I learned everything I could about it. And then I started talking to other people because, of course, when you find something exciting and new, you share it with others. And so I started sharing it with other people thinking, okay, this is exciting to me. But in the back of my mind, I was kind of always thinking, I bet you they already know about it. And I thought, because when I learned about it, I was like, how did I not hear about this before? And I kind of joked with myself, I must have missed that day in school, everybody must know this, right?
And it's what do they say? When the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Right.
It was a little bit of that. It was probably there. You just didn't see it. And alternatives probably. And that yeah. What's that? I don't know.
Exactly. And so I thought, okay, well, they're going to know about this already, but I'm going to share it anyways, because that's just how I am. And they didn't know it either. And these were people that I looked up to and respected, that they had their financial game together, right? Mm-hmm. And so I thought, okay, I didn't know this, and they didn't know it, and this person didn't know it. And so then I started talking to more people about it, and I was finding nobody had any clue of what I was talking about. And so
there's a big financial education gap in the country.
Yes. For sure. And I saw that as clear as day. And I thought, not only did I appreciate this, it's it was kind of funny because when I learned about through her presentation about alternative assets and, just a completely different shift on how to create and grow wealth, I literally went through a little mini depression, a 3-day depression where I went through all of the stages of grief. It's I was in shock. I was angry. I was a little depressed. I was how could I not have found out about these things? And my husband and I literally had conversations where we were if only we had known this 5 years, 10 years ago, our life would be so different now. And that thought like kept bouncing around in my head, if only I had known this. And so when I was thinking about that, and then thinking about the fact that so many people that I've talked to so far had no clue what I was talking about, but they were interested in learning about it, it made me realize that this, like you said, was an education that needs to be out there. And that, you know, there's so few people that are doing it. And so it just lit that fire in me, and it took a passion and a hobby that I had and created a business. So I like jumped in with both feet. I learned absolutely everything I could. I started becoming utilizing mentors in the industry in order to teach me about these things, and just kind of kept on going. And so my business over the years has continued to morph according to the needs of the economy, according to the needs of my clients, and so on. So it's always this continuous education, if you will.
Right. And you used the word alternative a few times there too, and that's kind of a funny misnomer in the modern day, because if you look at the bigger funds and the family offices and the savvy investors, they invest predominantly in alternative.
Correct.
The amount they have in like public equities and other stuff is very small.
Correct. Yeah. And that's actually one of the teaching points that I use with my clients, is that we, as like the general population, have been conditioned to take a look at growing and investing our money so differently, almost completely opposite of how like the hyper wealthy do it, you know? And so it's just some of the statistics is that like 90% of what most Americans have in their investments is in the market in one way or another. Whereas the hyper wealthy maybe cap out at 25 to 30% of their portfolio in something like that. And to your point, it's because of the volatility and the unpredictability. Whereas when you have something in a fixed, predictable, contractual manner, it's a lot easier to scale. It's a lot easier to plan, and it just makes for better growth.
Right. They have different cycles they operate on, but a big part to your point is diversification, right? They want non-correlated assets, and they're in retention phase as well.
Yeah.
unlike most of us. So there are some differences there. But can you tell me a little bit about the training you've had and learning from the mentors and stuff, and the difference between educating and advising in this industry?
Oh yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah. So I've been able to leverage relationships in lots of different avenues, whether it's in insurance, whether it's in the alternative assets world, family offices, you know, different things like that. And I really, really love being around other people who are in this space, because, you know, iron sharpens iron, right? And so it's, and plus, you know, there's always the saying too about how you want to be around those that are going to make you better. And I'm always looking to better myself, educate myself further in this industry. And you can't possibly know everything, you know? So I really, really like being able to network and receive mentorship and training and things like that from so many different professionals. I also got involved in the insurance world as well, you know, so because there's aspects of insurance that a lot of people don't realize are fundamental to the foundation of having a strong personal economy, a robust portfolio, if you will. And so those are a couple of really key factors. But to your question on the difference between, how did you say it? Was it coaching? Education and advising. Yeah. And so, and that's a really important one, because as a financial architect, I am not a fiduciary. I am not an advisor. I am an educator. And so to me, the difference of what I bring to the table is maintaining that delineation where the client is in control. They're the ones making the decisions. They are the ones that are receiving that education. So like when I'm working with a client, it's about showing them options. It's about showing them outcomes and results, and making them a better consumer of a product, a better consumer of money. And whereas advising oftentimes takes that control away from the client, takes I don't want to say the responsibility, but we're not as much in the driver's seat when it's in an advising role as opposed to an educational role. And to me, that's a really important thing for people to retain. In fact, when clients work with me, right? Yeah. When clients work with me, I tell them two things. You need to maintain efficiency of your money and you need to maintain control. The moment you give up either of those two things, you start to lose money. And so when somebody's working with an advisor, there's always a time and a place for everything. And so I don't want, like the wrong thought to come out in that. There's always a time and a place for every role, for, every product, things like that. But the thing that we always want to do is we always want to maintain that control. And so that's why I feel that education piece is so important, because when you are educated about something, then you feel confident in making decisions. A lot of times people leave that process to an advisor because they feel they don't know better. They feel they don't have all of the information. They're not qualified to make a decision and things like that. And so we want to take that control back. I always liken it to in health. Like if you got sick, and you went to the doctor and the doctor said, "Oh, you are diagnosed with XYZ." Well, are you the kind of person like me who's going to go home and devour everything I can possibly find on that particular illness and find out what I can do to reverse it, what I can do to cure it, what I can do to manage it, all of those different things? I'm going to take control of my health, and I'm going to work in conjunction with a professional in order to achieve a desired result. And so a lot of times there's a disconnect that we should be doing that exact same thing with money. We should be devouring what we can to become an educated consumer about a product that we use every single day, so that when we work in conjunction with a professional like an educator or an advisor or whoever we're working with, we are an active participant and we understand the process, we understand the product, we understand what we're doing with our money.
Right. Okay. Very, very good distinctions there. Something I'd like to add there too for our listeners is that not always, but often advisors get commissions on the products they sell. Right. You go into the bank, they say, go to the bank, and you get a return. They're making money off your money, and advisors as well. They're making money. You're the one taking the risk. It's your money going into something, and they're getting a commission on it or fees off of it or something. And that's one of the things that took me a while to figure out that I wasn't a big fan of.
Right. Because that happens whether you win or lose.
Yeah. They get paid either way, whether the market went up or down, they still get their share. And
exactly.
That's one of the reasons why, like, kind of what we do now is we have preferred returns and other structures where we don't really get paid until after our investors get, a certain return. They get their money back in a certain return, and then we start to share the profits type of thing, which I think is better alignment.
Sure. Right. Yeah, absolutely. And it puts some different responsibility in different spots. Yeah.
So what are some of the challenges in educating people, finding people that don't know better? Right. Because that's like most of us. That was me. Right. I didn't know better. Do they reach out to you? Do you have to go hit them on the head and go, what are you doing? Look at what you're doing.
It happens both ways. But I try to put out a lot of educational content, or position myself in areas where I can dispense that content. Because a lot of times what happens is the saying, you don't know what you don't know until you know it. So a lot of people don't realize the importance of having a personal economy, for one thing. They don't realize the importance of maintaining that control of their money and becoming that educated consumer. A lot of people are thinking, oh, I'm working with a financial professional, things will be fine. That doesn't work. We can't do that.
There's a cost for trying to putting somebody else in charge of your stuff, right?
Correct.
there's a few different ways of paying that too.
That's a very good way to put it. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And so it's like sometimes it's a matter of people realizing that that educational piece is equally important, sometimes even more important in order to achieve the goal that they're looking for with their financial professional, or on their own, however they're looking at doing it. So sometimes the challenge is finding people who are willing to make that investment into themselves,
Right.
because that's really what we're looking for, is we're looking to better ourselves and to find opportunities and avenues in order to have bigger and better results. And so that's I think the challenge that I run into probably more than anything is just letting people know that there's an option like this out here,
Right.
that can help plug the holes in what they're trying to accomplish in their strategy right now, that can enhance what they're already doing, or if they're feeling like they're backsliding or spinning their wheels or what have you, to help get them moving in the right direction. And again, going back to that word, help them create abundance.
A part of me is stuck on maybe it's because I have teenagers, but the nature of motivation, and they know what's the right path, right? They know they should educate themselves on this stuff, but they're like, that's hard, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to have to go do all that. And it's like, well, working an extra 10 years is hard too. So you get to choose.
Yes. Yeah, that's very true. It's all about speaking to a pain point, right? And so when it comes to it, what is our pain point when we're being really honest? Is it that we feel like we're spinning our wheels? We feel like we can't get ahead. We're living paycheck to paycheck. We're frustrated with how our portfolio is performing. We're anxious, like maybe we're working with a professional, but we really don't know, are we actually achieving our goals? I don't know where I'm at right now. That's a common thing that I hear from people. And the other thing too is that, kind of going back to your other question about the difference between an educator and an advisor, from my own experience and what I do hear oftentimes from my clients is that when they are working with a financial professional, so much focus tends to be on retirement that the here and now sometimes either gets glossed over or not even addressed. And so people will feel like, okay, well, I guess I'm working towards something in the future, but I don't know what I'm doing right now. I don't know if I'm going to have enough money saved for my kids' college. I don't know if I'm going to be able to continue this lifestyle for, if I'm going to have to do this, if I'm going to have to do that. And so I like to flip the script on it and say, let's do a 2-for-1, right? Who doesn't love a BOGO? And let's get everything set up right now. Let's get your systems, your strategies, your mindset, your tools, what have you. Let's get that set now and working in the proper way, creating that abundance now, and getting a habit in place so that no matter where life takes you as a transition,
right,
it's already set up and you're feeling confident because you've got this track record of confidence all this while. And so it's just a different way of looking at things.
Right. Again, reframing it and having the proper mindset for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Testing the link, I imagine. So since we're talking about investing, sometimes on the show I like to talk about that. Can you share maybe some of your best and worst investments you've had in your experience?
So when it comes to the best ones, I'm going to be conceptual about this actually. So when it comes to the best ones are the ones that are helping the client achieve the goal. So when they're aligned in that way. My space when I am leveraging those types of relationships tends to be in private lending. So that's what I'm familiar with, and things like that. And so when those are working well, it's creating the cash flow that is necessary for the goal of the client. That's what works great. The worst is when it doesn't perform like it's supposed to. It doesn't meet its deadlines. It doesn't, do what it's supposed to do. And that can create frustration. And so that is why, again, going back to the personal economy, it's so important to have all of your systems in place, your structure, your money rules, what have you, so that when something doesn't perform the way that it's supposed to,
Right.
we've already got other, I can't think of the word for it, but we've already got other options, other things in place in order to help weather that out. So if, like, let's say we had a deadline. Contingencies, thank you.
Plan
Yes,
B,
that's the word.
Sure.
Yep. So like if something doesn't come due when it's supposed to mature, okay, were we like really counting on those funds and now we're stuck? Or did we plan accordingly? Did we have our money rules set properly? So we worked in alignment with them. If we have to wait a little bit longer, it's okay. So
Right.
that's what I would say about that.
Okay. Thank you. Spacing on the next question I had for you. So I'm going to keep talking about real estate or investments and ask you about real estate. That's an alternative asset as well. Can you talk about some of the alternative investments that are maybe more common or frequent in your education to people, to your clients?
So what I have typically worked with are private lending
Okay.
as an alternative asset. So it's a collateralized loan backed by real estate. And those tend to be really nice because they have oftentimes several layers of protection in them that help mitigate risk. Nothing is risk-free. Nothing is guaranteed. Of course, I always make the joke with clients, some days it's risky getting out of bed. So,
Right.
we take that into consideration. And again, we take that into account when we're creating our money rules. But I like private lending just because it's on the debt side as opposed to the equity side. And so it tends to be mitigated a little bit further. It is essentially, the way I like to explain it to people is it's like you're taking the position of a bank. So you are the bank in the structure, the entity, the business, or what have you is the borrower.
Right.
And so you are lending funds to that. You have a contract in place, you have collateral in place. Oftentimes there's other layers of protection to help protect your money and insulate you in that way. I always make the correlation to people that it's like buying a house. A bank is willing to lend you money for the house because they have a contract stating that you are going to make payments, principal and interest payments in this term for this length of time. And if you don't, they can take the house from you. And so the private lending types of opportunities are very much like that, where you have a contract, there is a term, payments need to be made on, X amount of terms for X amount of time. And
Right.
if they do not fulfill that contractual obligation, then they have a package of oftentimes real estate backing it up that they stand to lose in order to make you whole. So that's a little bit of a recap on those types of offerings.
It's always nice to be at the top of the capital stack or the bottom, depending on how you first position.
Correct. Yes, very true.
Right. Right. Okay. So people who want to learn more, they can check out your Wednesday webinar. Is that some way they can connect?
Yes, absolutely. Every Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, I host a 30-minute webinar. It's entitled Transform Your Finances, Build a Robust Personal Economy. And it's a really great introductory 30 minutes in order to get you introduced to what a personal economy is, why it's really important to have one. But we cover some actionable points. You come away with something that you can start to implement in your own personal economy. We talk about 4 major gaps that most people have in their personal economy, and how to close those gaps in order to see forward momentum in whatever you're doing financially. And so that's at 8 p.m. Eastern every Wednesday.
All right. We'll have to share that link as well. Okay. And besides that, if people would like to connect with you and learn more, what can they do?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can go to either Instagram or Facebook, and my handle there is position yourself WS. They can also go to my website, which is wealthstrategiesforlife.com. And those are the best ways to connect with me. Yep.
Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you, Tara. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. Thank you, Tara Mettler, for joining me today. We appreciate you sharing.
Thanks for having me.
Insights into wealth. Was it wealth architect or financial architect?
Financial architect. Yep.
Wealth structuring. And I guess that's the one thing I was going to say earlier that I sort of spaced on is the clarity that is provided by having some assistance and people that you see the bigger picture goes a really, really long way to success. Is because, again, you don't know what you don't know, but you also, if you don't know where you're going, you're going to wind up somewhere else.
Right, exactly. Well, that's why I really liked the term architect, because it's about building the life that you want, right? And to do an entire structure. You don't have a home that just has a living room in it. You have all these different pieces, and you have plans in order to get to that. And everybody needs a financial architect to do that same thing for them. Yep.
Right. To create the life you want.
That's right.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks again. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching.
Thank you.
Inspired by our guests? Visit phoenixprosperitypodcast.com/guest and join us on the show and share your success story with Tim. The spotlight awaits.